Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I'm going to look at the week starting on Monday, March the 25th, 2024. And this is the last week of the month. So the next week starts on Monday, April the 1st. So let me just give you an idea about what I'm going to cover in this video. I'm going to start by looking at the main events astrologically this week, as I see it. Really, it's dominated by the A-pulse eclipse on Monday. I've already covered that. I'm going to be looking at it again, just going over it, just to remind you what it's all about. Then I'm going to look at some other stuff, but really it's all about the eclipse this week in terms of the main event. Having done that, yes, I will be looking at Princess Catherine. Of course, we've had this diagnosis that she's been this cancer diagnosis. So I'm going to be going back over some of the charts I've looked at, and I also want to consider some people around her that might be impacted by this. And I do want to look at the chart of England. Reason I look at the chart of England is I kind of think it's quite an important chart. This is the coronation of William I on Christmas Day, 1066. I think it does resonate with the chart. So yes, I will be looking at that. And, I did talk about Meghan's chart recently in light of this eclipse. And I do think we now get some idea, perhaps, about how that eclipse on Monday might be having an impact on Meghan. But I must emphasize that a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about in terms of Princess Catherine is stuff I've already gone over. I'm not claiming that I'm going to say anything wonderfully new, but given we've just had this diagnosis, I thought I should say something about it. Having done that, I want to look at the I Ching for this week. And so what I do is I cast the I Ching and I ask the question, what is it going to be like? What's the week going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And I divide my reading into 4 sections: general section, money, career, and then relationships. But I must emphasize, if you don't want your I Ching done, you don't have to watch that segment. It only works if you watch it. It's designed for people who watch that segment. If you don't watch the segment, then you're not part of the forecast. So let's look at this week. So here we have the horoscope for the very beginning of the week. This is when the week starts, midnight, New York, Monday, March the 25th, 2024. So the week starts with the moon at the beginning of Libra, and it starts on a full moon. And on Monday, yes, there is a full moon. Full moons are about revelations often, something coming to light. We can see the truth of the matter. Now, just because we see the truth of the matter doesn't mean to say that we're able to act on the truth of the matter. It's like, you can spend years and years in therapy. You can completely understand your own problems. You can understand why in your distant childhood you are what you are. You can understand all of that. Doesn't mean you do anything about it. You don't change. You can be the same person. So understanding the truth of the matter is not necessarily the whole story. You actually have to act on it. So just because we see the truth doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to understand the truth. And sorry, let me rephrase that. Just because we see the truth, it doesn't mean we're going to act on the truth. We can actually persist in behaviors, perhaps in relationships, that are doing us no good. And with the moon, opposition the sun, we have to remember we've got the sun is in Aries, conjunct the North Node. It is an eclipse, an apulse eclipse. Because it's an eclipse, that's why we've got the North Node involved. The direction going forward for us, I think, is taking the initiative, being active. And that moon in Libra is fairly close to the South Node. So we should be careful about making compromises. It's easy to do with a moon in Libra. It feels the most comfortable thing to do, but maybe that's not the right approach. Sometimes we have to live with tension. If we say that everything is all right, we sweep everything under the carpet, that's not so good, is it? And this full moon, as I discussed in a very recent video, is semi-square Uranus. You see, there is Uranus at 2028 Taurus. So this. Let me just let's just have a look at the full moon, because this really is. We've seen this chart before, but this chart is set for London, but it doesn't matter where you are. The fact that you've got a new moon semi-square Uranus, and there is actually on Monday Sun semi-square Uranus. That is an aspect also going on. So more about Monday. So this full moon is potentially about rebelling. Sun in Aries, semi-square Uranus. This is perhaps something that we need to be considering this week. This may be a week where many of us have to take a stand. Why would we take a stand? Because we can see the truth. Once we see the truth of the matter, then we see what we have to do. And this may be reflected by what's going on around the world, just certain people saying they've had enough. So it could be quite a stormy week. And, we have to remember that full moons are not one-day wonders. It's tempting to just put a video up on a full moon, then move on. Well, let's look at the next aspect, the next thing going on. Full moons can hang around, certainly hang around for 2 weeks. It can hang around for 4 weeks. And so when we look at this full moon, and I know it's on Monday, I'm not just talking about Monday. That's why I said this full moon does dominate the week. In fact, it dominates the next 2 weeks, possibly dominates the next month. So that's the general picture of what is going on with this full moon. And I think, yes, some of us might be quite rebellious. We might think we've had enough, and there could be surprises, and they may not always be pleasant surprises. And I suppose I'm not necessarily talking about in a personal sense. I'm not warning you about anything that necessarily. It just may be about what's going on with the world. So really, I could stop there. I don't really have to say anything much more about this week, because everything else happening this week is somewhat dwarfed. So later in the week, I should say also on Monday, Venus is semi-square Pluto. I can happily use the full moon chart rather than the chart for midnight in New York. Venus is semi-square Pluto. So you see, there's Venus, 1633 Pisces at the time of the full moon. There's Pluto, 145 Aquarius. So Venus semi-square Pluto can be about relationships. It can be about relationships but maybe are quite quite intense. That's possible. There could be power struggles in relationships. There may be a lack of trust, and there may be this influence. This question about who is trying to control who, and the emphasis could very much be on emotional control. Who controls the emotional temperature? That is a big question, and this is all happening at the same time as the full moon. So as you move through the week, I suppose the influence of that Sun semi-square Uranus, Venus semi-square Pluto on Monday does start to subside a bit. Then on Thursday, Venus moves on. You see, Venus was at 616 Pisces at the beginning of the week. Venus moves on towards a sextile with Uranus. And Venus sextile Uranus is a relatively harmless aspect. It's exciting, but it's a sextile. I don't think that we can expect a lot to happen with Venus sextile Uranus, but certain relationships may become interesting. We may have ideas about how to relate to people. So maybe as we move into the middle of a week, it may occur to us when we consider how we're dealing with the people around us, maybe the people very close to us, we may be aware of it. There's been a certain sameness about it. We just keep relating in the same old way. And maybe it's become a bit boring, and maybe we need to just stir things up a little, start finding a new way to get on with people, a new way perhaps to introduce ourselves, a new way to interact, and maybe more exciting. And Venus sextile Uranus may be about a relationship becoming more exciting, perhaps a distant relationship becoming a closer relationship. And that sextile is about action, but gentle action. Something we can do to improve a relationship, but not according to a script, because it's Venus sextile Uranus. Uranus is a planet of surprises. So making a bit of a change, a mini revolution, but not a revolution in a particularly destructive way, just stirring things up gently. Then really the final aspect I want to talk about is on Friday. On Friday, Mars is quintile Jupiter. So there's Jupiter. At the beginning of the week, it's at 15 Taurus. Mars moves on, and so Mars moves on, Jupiter moves on, and by Friday, Mars and Jupiter are exactly 72 degrees apart. And you're thinking, well, so what, 72 degrees apart? Well, that's a quintile. That's a fifth of the circle. And quintiles are about style. And with Mars quintile Jupiter, some of us are going to want to adopt quite an over-the-top style. We're going to be trying to make a big effort to show how we can be energetic, dynamic. It's not particularly natural, though. It's a little bit contrived. But we're going to feel that being dynamic is the way to get attention and is the way to be successful. And if we can't be dynamic, then look at other people. Look at how they're behaving. Look at their dynamism. Look at their exaggerated actions. I suppose there could be an unfortunate side to the Mars quintile Jupiter. Certain people behaving in an irresponsible way, not in a naturally irresponsible way, but in a contrived irresponsible way, because they feel they have to. So do be on the lookout for that. And if you see people behaving in an exaggerated way, perhaps you should avoid them, and maybe be careful if you're doing anything dangerous. I suppose there's always, people are just complaining about racing. I don't know why people want to race. Certainly around here, you can always hear racing. So, Mars, quintile, Jupiter might encourage people to do stuff like racing, driving their cars at 100 miles an hour in 25-mile-an-hour zones, because it just encourages people. It just makes Mars, quintile, Jupiter may encourage people to just go a bit over the top in that way, but just in such a contrived way, really quite unnecessary. So really, that's it for this week in terms of what's happening astrologically. There may be other things that I've missed, but one other thing I should point out is approximately from Tuesday to Thursday, you can see that at the beginning of a week the moon is at 5 Libra. Well, on Tuesday the moon moves into the Via Combusta. It depends on your time zone where. I'm not going to tell you exactly when the moon moves into the Via Combusta, but around Tuesday, moon goes into 15 Libra, Via Combusta, the flaming path, and until about Thursday, it's, because the Via Combusta is from 15 Libra to 15 Scorpio. So sort of early midweek, we've got the moon moving through the Via Combusta. And so, when you've got the moon moving through the Via Combusta, you can find that things don't work to plan. The Via Combusta is the flaming path. We make plans, we assume everything's going to work to these plans, but it doesn't work. Something happens, and we have to start again. It doesn't mean to say that things fail when the moon is in the Via Combusta. It just means that things don't turn out as expected. So if you're making careful plans in midweek, which really do require everything to follow a particular pattern, you might be disappointed. Something might happen that you just really weren't expecting, and maybe you just have to start all over again. So try to have a bit of flexibility. Okay, so that's this week. Said dominated by the Apollo eclipse on Monday, and now I want to talk a bit about Catherine and this cancer diagnosis. I'm probably going to be fairly chaotic in what I say, just moving from chart to chart. So just a reminder that this is her horoscope. She has got she's got this full moon square Saturn. Now, yes, she's got the moon in Cancer, opposition the Sun and square the Saturn and square Saturn. So we've got Saturn on the Sun Moon midpoint. Yes, I know that there is a cancer diagnosis. We don't know what type of cancer. I don't think there's any point in speculating. I don't think that's particularly useful. But as I said before, just because the moon is in Cancer doesn't mean cancer. The symbolism is different. I wouldn't, we don't associate the sign Cancer with cancer, but in this case, the moon is under pressure, and yes, she has a cancer diagnosis. She had, an abdominal surgery, and I don't know quite what it is. We don't know, but said I'm not going to speculate. But her moon is under a lot of pressure. Her moon is in the 12th house. It's a very difficult moon, and we don't know quite why this cancer happened. But I suppose it can't have helped the fact that she had such a stressful, high-profile life since, and even indeed before marrying William. Cancer is, it's usually genetic, isn't it? She seems to probably had a pretty good lifestyle. So it was probably something genetic and probably would have happened regardless of what she did. But this public position that she's had just can't have helped. That moon in Cancer, opposition Sun. The moon in Cancer's North Node. This is where she is supposed to be going, the North Node. and it's should be her way forward. The Sun is conjunct her South Node. Sun, Capricorn, very very organized, a very sort of businesslike. Conjunct her South Node. Her family, they had a successful business, and so that's where she came from. That's perhaps her role models, and I suppose being in a royal family, that's very Capricorn, a very organized role. But it's square Saturn. It's a really difficult T-square, that, when you've got Saturn square the moon, square the sun. Now, you could argue that everything happens for a reason. It's almost a truism, particularly in astrology and this whole New Age field. Yeah, everything happens for a reason. Perhaps we say that to make things better, when actually things don't happen for a reason at all. They're just chaotic. But if we take the view that everything happens for a reason, if we go for that old truism that everything happens for a reason, then you might say, well, she got cancer for a reason. That's a terrible thing to say. But as a result of this diagnosis, whatever happens, her lifestyle has got to change. She needs to get more into that moon. That poor moon in Cancer, which is hers. It's a female chart. The moon in a female chart is actually more important than the sun. That moon is all about nurturing. It's in the 12th house. It needs some privacy there in the 12th house. And maybe as a result of his cancer diagnosis, the people around her are going to put less pressure on her. She's going to have more time on her. She's going to be able to have more space, more time. And she's going to find it perhaps, hopefully, easier to lead her life as it was perhaps supposed to have been led. So that's her chart. The diagnosis, I don't know exactly when it happened, but William had to cancel an appointment on I believe on February the 27th as a result of the diagnosis. This is the day of February the 27th when that diagnosis. Well, we don't know whether that was the day of the diagnosis, but this is when he had a cancelled appointment. I've set that for noon in London, and it would then be reasonable to consider that the full moon prior to that, which would have been a couple of days before, may have been perhaps the real start of the thing. I don't know, but full moon, February the 24th, 2024. I looked at this full moon. This was the full moon that was... it was on Harry's Mercury. Prince Harry had his Mercury at, where does he have his Mercury? At 5. Harry has his Mercury at 5 Virgo. And so this full moon was right on Harry's Mercury. And perhaps for Harry that... I'm assuming that the public was told about the diagnosis a couple of days ago, but I'm assuming that Harry would have been told about it pretty soon. I mean, I don't know, maybe wrong, but maybe this diagnosis had an impact on Harry, because this full moon was right on his Mercury. I'm not quite sure what was going on in terms of Harry's legal cases. May have been about the legal cases, this full moon. So that's the full moon set for London. And if you set this full moon for London, and this is actually the full moon, the last full moon, what is going on, for the UK. So this was probably the full moon before the diagnosis, and it was actually probably the full moon before the announcement on Friday. And so that full moon shows Saturn on the midheaven. Now, you may be you may be British, you may be Republican, you may think the royalty is irrelevant. As I said, I am completely ambivalent about the royalty. But like it or not, King Charles is a head of state. That's the way it is, and the midheaven certainly has a connection with royalty. And looking at this full moon on February the 24th, 2024, it's a previous full moon. This kind of shows how long full moons can last for. You can see that the Saturn is conjunct the midheaven on that full moon, and the moon is at 5 Virgo. So the moon is moving towards an opposition with moving towards an opposition of Saturn. So there is something very heavy about this full moon. Now, that could be about what's going on in the country, but that's about the dis-ease in the UK, but it can literally be about the people ruling the country, and it can, in fact, and that includes the royal family. And there's a Saturn on the midheaven. Moon is at 5 Virgo, so Moon is about 4 degrees off the opposition of Saturn. So you could use a symbolic measure there and say, well, 4 degrees is 4. We take 1 degree equals 1 week. So sort of approximately 4 weeks later, some difficult news comes out into the open. Now, this full moon does have an impact on Kate, but on Catherine, but you may not be able to see it immediately. So here is Catherine's chart in the middle, and there is a chart of the full moon. Now, this full moon is at 5 Virgo. Now, that 5 Virgo is making a semi-square, sort of, to her sun, and it's making a semi-square to sesquiquadrate to her Saturn. And so it's sort of hitting her Sun-Saturn midpoint, it's hitting her Moon-Saturn midpoint. So that is how I think that this full moon is impacting Catherine, or did impact Catherine. I think it hit her T-square. But it wasn't particularly obvious because one's having to think in terms of semi-squares and sesquiquadrates. And I think this really illustrates how important it is to use semi-squares and sesquiquadrates. Another chart I wanted to look at, just as a sort of a reminder, is the chart of the marriage of Catherine and William. This just further highlights the pressure that Catherine is under, or has been under, since she got married. Because at this marriage, Venus was on the midheaven, really out there. Venus represents, as far as I'm concerned, Venus represents Catherine, and Mars represents William. And so Venus was on the midheaven. And Venus was, that's Catherine, bright lights. But it's Venus, okay, Venus is in mutual reception. Is it? No, it's not in mutual reception. No, Venus is not in mutual reception to anything. Venus is it's in mixed reception with the Sun. Okay, Venus is in the exaltation of the Sun. Sun is in the sign of Venus, but I don't think a mixed reception is enough to mitigate the issue of Venus being Venus is in its detriment, and Venus is making an opposition to Saturn. So this is a very difficult thing for Catherine being in this marriage, and I think it goes back to the fact that in her natal chart she has the moon the moon in the 12th in Cancer, basically needing space and conjunct North Node, needing a nurturing environment. And this marriage is really suggesting that this is not the kind of environment she's been getting, and this hasn't helped. And I'm not saying that she got the cancer because of all the stress she was under being William's wife. It was, there's often some, as I said, some genetic disposition and so forth. But as I said, it can't have helped. Though I suppose you could say, on the other side, being in the royal family, she would have got the best medical care available and the best preventative medical care available. Maybe if she'd been some ordinary person, she wouldn't have been checked out as much as she was checked out, and maybe the cancer would not have been caught as early as it was caught. I mean, as far as people are saying it's been caught early. She had supposedly preventative chemotherapy. But Venus is opposition Saturn, and that just shows the pressure she is under. And I suppose, in terms of her getting over this cancer, because we don't know how bad it is, it's just going to be really important that basically, I would have said all her duties have to come to an end forever. And she has to completely, if I was advising her, I would have said she just has to completely get into that moon in Cancer in the 12th house for the rest of her life. That would be the best way to get through it. Just don't have any duties whatsoever. That would be, get into that moon in Cancer in the 12th house. That would be my opinion. So moving from a marriage, I want to look at William's chart. William's chart, here's Prince William's chart. And I know at the moment, William has got 27 Sagittarius rising, so he's got Neptune square his ascendant. So yes, that must be really difficult. But what I do find particularly interesting about William's chart is his Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Algol. Venus is about women, the women in his chart. Chiron is about wounds, wounded women. Venus is conjunct Algol. Algol is a malefic fixed star. It's ahead of the demon. And so this might be about the experience that women have when they get close to William. It's not William's fault, by the way. And so Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Algol, in the first instance, is his mother. Obviously, his mother died in a car accident in August the 31st, 1997. That is Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Algol. And I'm thinking that from a psychological perspective, with this diagnosis of Catherine's cancer diagnosis, he's probably just, from a psychological point of view, that whole Venus Chiron conjunct Algol is just being stirred up all over again. And he may be saying, oh, not again. Maybe. But I think that, Catherine is fitting into that Venus conjunct Chiron conjunct Algol thing all over again. And matters are not helped by the fact that Uranus is about to cause problems with this. Uranus is going to be going over Venus. Uranus is going to be conjunct his Venus later in the year. To be precise, Uranus is going to be end of June, around his birthday. In fact, it might be a good idea to look at his solar return. So if we look at Prince William's solar return for this year, this is the chart of when the sun returns to where it was when he was born on his birthday, which is June the 21st, 2024. So this is his solar return. And we can compare the two charts. So William's chart is in the middle, his natal chart is in the middle, his solar return chart is on the outer wheel. And you can see that at the time of his solar return, there are a couple of things going on. Firstly, there's his Venus-Chiron conjunction. You can see that Uranus is conjunct his Chiron exactly, and Uranus is moving towards a conjunction of his Venus. And also, at the time of his solar return, you can't quite see it, there's going to be a full moon. So there's a full moon just after his solar return. That full moon is, just have a look, there's a full moon on June the 22nd, the day after his birthday, at 1:07 Capricorn. So that full moon is pretty close, hits his sun quite massively. Plus he's got Uranus on his Venus. Uranus conjunct his Venus at the time. And a bit later, the following month, there's going to be a Mars conjunct Uranus. You see Mars is at Taurus, catching up with Uranus. And so that Mars conjunct Uranus is going to be on his Venus. That I don't really want to comment on that, but I want to point it out, that Venus representing the women in his life is there's going to be a hit over the summer. I think I have to point that out. And another chart that I want to consider is the chart of Prince George. Now, I've already said that I don't believe that Prince George is suitable to be king. I've looked at his chart. I think his chart is far too negative. By far too negative, I mean every single planet except for Uranus is in a negative sign. When by negative sign, I mean fire. I mean earth and water. And he's just got Uranus in Aries. He's got no air in his chart, and his only fire planet is a generational Uranus in Aries. I think that he was born on a full moon, moon opposition the sun. He's got Scorpio rising. I just think that he is far, far too sensitive to be King of England, to the bright lights. Like his mother, he's got the North Node in Scorpio in the 12th house. Sorry, not in Scorpio, but his mother has North Node in the 12th house. He's got North Node in the 12th house. I really don't think he's suitable material to be king. And, maybe all of the stuff going on in his life, maybe he's starting to come to that realization himself. I'm hoping he and his family come to that realization sooner rather than later. Now, as far as what is going on, you will notice with George's chart that his descendant is 27-8 Taurus. So that's pretty close. Oh, by the way, I was talking about William's Venus on Taurus. Venus in Taurus conjunct Algol conjunct Chiron, and I suppose just a quick reminder that Diana's Venus was at 24 Taurus. So Prince William's Venus is conjunct his mother's Venus. But going back to Prince George's chart, so his descendant at 27 Taurus is pretty close to his grandmother's Venus. And then that there is that reminder that Uranus is moving through late Taurus. So he is about to have Uranus on his descendant, and I think this is, if you look at Prince George's solar return because his birthday is towards the end of July. At his solar return, he is going to have Uranus fairly close to his descendant. So Uranus over the summer, Prince George has Uranus crossing his descendant, and there's also a full moon on his birthday. So Prince William has a full moon on around the time of his birthday, and Prince George has a full moon around the time of his birthday. So I don't know. I think in terms of Catherine, and her husband and her eldest son, they have some big stuff going on over the summer, and I think that is, I don't know. I think that's something we have to consider. One other chart I just quickly wanted to mention was England's chart. Just a reminder that when we had this whole health thing happening with Prince Catherine at the beginning of the year, Pluto was, I think, just about to go into Aquarius. And England, that chart, December the 25th, 1066, by the way, it says December the 31st, but that's because I think this software gives me the Gregorian calendar and converts it, but don't worry, this is the chart for December the 25th at noon. Venus is at 2951, and so Pluto conjunct England's Venus, which is the beginning, which is a chart very much connected with the royal family as well, because it's the coronation of William I, and by and large, since then, there's been a sort of continuous successions, and there's been a great continuity since. I know one should say, well, go back to the Anglo-Saxons, but I think in English history and the history of the royal family, that December the 25th, 1066 is important. If there is a chart for the royal family, and you have this big Norman influence because you had the Norman invasion in 1066, and we've been under this. The Normans have had a big impact on the rule of of Britain since then. I think that is an important chart, and so Pluto was conjunct England's Venus at the time of the coronation, and of course Venus is a universal signature of women, and I think Catherine is the Venus, and Pluto is conjunct the Venus. Was conjunct the Venus, and I think that fits extremely well. One other thing to point out about this chart is that the moon, England's moon, is at 29 Pisces. Now, it's not on Skeet because of the precession of the equinoxes, because Skeet was somewhere different in the 11th century. But Neptune is conjunct England's moon at the moment. It's moving towards a conjunction, and Saturn is starting to move towards England's moon. 25, 26, you've got a Saturn-Neptune conjunction on England's moon. And now England is going to be under a lot of pressure, perhaps. I mean, it's almost certain that the Tories are going to lose the next election. But, in the backdrop of, what's going on with Kate, and the fact that Neptune is conjunct the moon represents a female, represents females in general. So I think perhaps the country is, Kate and Neptune on England's moon, that sort of all comes together. One final chart I want to look at is that of Meghan. I mentioned the fact that Meghan was hit or will be hit by the full moon on March the 25th. So there's Meghan's chart in the middle, and there is Meghan's chart in the middle, and there is where's the oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Let me okay, so sorry, okay, there's Meghan's chart. Let's start again. There's Meghan's chart, and we're going to put Meghan's chart and the full moon on the outside. So there's the full moon on which will be on the 25th of March, and you can see that this full moon is right on Meghan's moon. It's kind of Meghan's lunar return. It really does hit her, this full moon. Because Meghan has a Moon Saturn Jupiter conjunction at 4, 5, and 6 Libra. So you've got full moon on this conjunction, and what does it mean? I'm just thinking it may be difficult for Meghan because Meghan has had this narrative of being the victim, of being treated badly by the British royal family. And now that narrative has to be over, surely. Whatever's happened in the past, the focus is on Catherine, and the sympathy for Catherine. Of course, Charles has just had a cancer diagnosis, but I think this is going to completely disrupt Meghan's narrative. I think there is a possibility, and I think that she may be hit quite badly by this full moon. There may be other things going on, but I wouldn't have thought she's, okay, she's going to respond to the news, I assume, in a human way, in a human, sympathetic way. But there's also her thinking about what does it mean for her story. And it does force her to see the truth of the matter and to realise that whatever she does now, it really does have to be separate from any subjective feelings of victimhood she might have. That has all gone. And I suppose I should mention, of course, that the full moon is on Meghan's lunar return. So I hadn't set up Meghan's lunar return, but I think that's a final chart I want to look at. There's Meghan's chart, and I want to look at her return chart, her lunar return. So her lunar return. Okay, so just a quick look at Meghan's lunar return. Okay, yeah, this is Meghan's lunar return. So Meghan has her lunar return when the moon returns to where it was when she was born on March the 24th. So that's a Sunday, March the 24th. She has her lunar return. There you can see it. So when the moon returns, it is very close to, it's extremely close to her sun. And you'll notice that on her lunar return, she has got Saturn. She's got Saturn conjunct her IC. Now that Saturn conjunct the IC is relevant, and you'll see how relevant it is when you compare that chart with her natal chart. So there is Meghan's natal chart in the middle. There's the lunar return on the outside, the positions for March the 24th. And remember, Meghan has got her Venus at 1308 Virgo. So Meghan has got her Saturn is about to opposition her Venus as a transit. That's a difficult one. So with this, she's got full moon on her lunar return. She's got Saturn opposition her Venus. I'm kind of thinking, what's that word? You almost have an imagine. You almost imagine with Meghan, didn't she make this interview saying something like, "What about me?" I can't help thinking about that. What about me? Meghan saying, "What about me?" And all the world is thinking about something else. So maybe that's an element of what's going on at the moment. Yes, I think that Saturn opposition Venus, opposition Meghan's Venus. I think there could be some issue that I think she could be feeling quite sorry for herself. Possibly not good for relationships with the moon hitting her full moon, hitting her moon, Saturn, Jupiter. But also a sense of realization, and that is the thing about full moons. She's seeing the truth of the matter. At many levels, but just because we see the truth doesn't mean that we change our behaviour. It's not the same thing. Okay, so those are some charts relating to Catherine, and I was and William and George. I even managed to get a mention of Meghan in the end. And what I want to do now is move over to the I Ching. So I asked the question, about what's going to happen next week. Now, if you don't want to know what's going to happen next week from an I Ching perspective, you don't want to be part of this I Ching reading, you can stop watching the video. You don't have to watch the rest of it. Then whatever I say is not going to be relevant to you because the question is about those watching the I Ching segment. So remember, the question I asked was, what is the week starting on Monday, March the 25th, going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? So I threw the coins, and the first hexagram I got was hexagram 42, which is increase. In general, this is a fortunate hexagram. It's basically saying how we can increase. Now, that may mean, quite literally, we get more stuff. Whatever we're looking for, we get an increase. That could be an increase in money. It could be an increase in recognition or praise, self-esteem. So there are all those ways in which increase can work. It can also be about us increasing other people, making a contribution to other people, not at our expense, just something that is very natural, that something we can do. So we can actually make the world a better place. Okay, there may be a small sense of sacrifice, but it's just about us being at the service of the wider community. And there is the suggestion here that we do need to take some kind of initiative. An initiative that may be a little bit rash, but not dangerous. There's a difference. It is time, perhaps, to cross the great water, to make the move now. Perhaps we've waited. We've waited long enough. Now's the time to actually do it. Maybe the time is now right. And we do have a moving line, the moving line at the bottom. And again, this moving line is, in this case, is fortunate. Sometimes the bottom line can be unfortunate. But in this case, it is fortunate. And it is about making that move forward. That's what it's about. We make the move. And this moves to a different hexagram. And it moves to hexagram 21, which is contemplation. So contemplation indicates that we are making a move in the previous hexagram, increase. but up to a point. Contemplation is about watching rather than acting. So we initiate something. Then we see how it goes. We wait. We look at what impact our initiative has had. And that is the contemplation element of this hexagram, or indeed of this whole reading. The I Ching talks about making the ablution, but not the sacrifice. So I'm not suggesting you sacrifice anything here, but the ablution is like, I suppose, one washes before doing something, in preparation for doing something, but one doesn't necessarily go ahead and do it. So the ablution has been made, but not the sacrifice. And so this is about the beginning of action. We start the action strongly, but then we pause, and when we get an idea about what's actually happened, what impact there has been. And so that's a general idea about the I Ching for this week. From the perspective of money, I think it's quite nice to have 42 increase when looking at money. It may indicate that this week there is actually an opportunity to make more money, literally increase, getting more stuff. So if you need more money, want more money, I think that there are going to be opportunities to get more money. And that is certainly to be welcomed. There may be also a need to perhaps spend some money in order to make more money. I'm not talking about investment, I don't think. I'm just talking about perhaps investing in certain, things that are necessary perhaps for your work or for something. But I'm not talking about huge amounts of money. But you put out a little and you get back a lot. So that may be one way that increase is working out. And isn't there that law that if you want money, you need to spend money? It's like if you're feeling really sorry for yourself and you're feeling like you've got no money at all and you're feeling completely poor from a spiritual perspective, what you should do to resolve the situation is perhaps give some money to a beggar. If you're feeling really poor, really sorry for yourself financially, then give some money to a beggar, because by giving out a little to the universe, you're creating a situation where you get back a whole lot more. So there may be a certain sense of that with increase, particularly if we're feeling financially really under pressure. Just giving out a little, but getting a lot back. But it does seem overall, but there are ways of making more money. The money is coming our way. If we do the right thing, with all this stuff, particularly with money, you should never just say, listen to someone like me, say, oh yeah, money's going to be fine, just wait for it to come your way. No, it just doesn't work like that, does it? I'm afraid. You actually have to put some effort in. Not too much effort, I don't think, but overall, from a financial perspective, increase is a good hexagram. And once things start going your way, maybe, I should say that the bottom line moves. Again, I was saying don't be passive here. The bottom line is about movement. It's about action. So it may be it seems that there is something you have to do. It's doing something rather bold in order to increase your income or to get some money that you're looking for. Something bold has to be done. You take an initiative. Maybe you send a letter. Maybe you ask for money. It depends on the situation. Maybe you bid for a contract. You write a letter asking for a pay rise or whatever you feel you need to do. And then the hexagram moves to contemplation. So this is like saying you take action to increase your your income or your wealth or whatever you're trying to do, you take the action, you take that first action. It's not a complete action. And then you wait. Then you wait to see what happens. You wait to see how people respond before taking any further action. But overall, I think this week, from a financial point of view, really looks quite good. Turning to career and business and work, if that is relevant to you, first hexagram 42 increase. Definitely things you can do here. It's certainly not a time to rest on your laurels. 42 is about taking some kind of initiative. It is about crossing the great water. So whatever your situation, so if you're unemployed, looking for a job, now is the time to send the letter. I mean, I know that depends where you are. Perhaps people are slowing down for Easter. I'm always amazed, isn't it? I mean, I thought America was a Christian country. I'm still shocked that Good Friday is just a normal day in America. Good Friday, it's the most solemn day, but no, people just work as per normal. I still find that really weird. And but anyway, you're not interested in that, I assume. But so. Yes, I know people might be slowing down for Easter. Maybe not in America, but maybe in other countries. Certainly in England, I think people are slowing down. For the UK, people are slowing down for Easter. It's about starting something at work, or sending a letter. So if you're unemployed, sending out the letter, calling people, doing something that is slightly outside your comfort zone. I think some people do find that difficult. Maybe one of the reasons I'm an astrologer is because when I left university, I find it difficult to get jobs. I find it really difficult to take the initiative. I find it really. It's not that I don't want to do the job. It's just I don't like taking the initiative. I just find that really difficult. But increase. Here is telling you you've got to move outside your comfort zone. You've got to ask for things, even if you feel slightly embarrassed doing it. And that's not just if you're looking for a job, it's you're looking for a contract, a promotion. It's telling you, I think it is telling you to move outside your comfort zone, to just do something that feels a bit rash. No, I'm not going to take any responsibility if it backfires and makes your position worse, or you lose your job because you've been too pushy. Just bear this in mind. And that this video and these I Ching readings are for entertainment only. But still, being a bit rash might be the right thing to do. And don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself, whether you're asking for a job, asking for a promotion, asking for a contract. You've got to put yourself out there. It's really important. And we have a moving line, and that moving line really does emphasize this. You've got to cross the great water. You do it. And then contemplation, 21. Then you wait to see what happens. You've done but make sure that this stage, by the time you've hit 21, you have done your best. And if you've done your best, I think your best should be good enough. And then perhaps you're just waiting to see it through. You're looking for the response with contemplation. The ablution has been made. You've made the preparation. You've taken the initiative. You haven't gone. It's not a crazy initiative like burning all your bridges, whatever. You've made the initiative. Now you're waiting to see what happens. And so when you find out what happens, you can then take your next step. But that's going to be next week, which is going to be next month. Relationships. This hexagram is this hexagram that we start off with, increase. I think that relationships do seem to be in the process of improving. And whether you were talking about a new relationship or an existing relationship, your actions can make things better. It's you just have to be positive. You also don't feel that you have to be in control all the time. I think it was Greg Winkup. He said with this hexagram, but actually increase works best when you're in a slightly subservient position. I don't mean subservient in a derogatory sense. When you're contributing to someone else's happiness, and you're giving something out. So that is going to help. In terms of new relationships, whatever this new relationship is, it might feed back. I just talked about career and business, but this might be about a business relationship as well. It needn't be a romantic relationship. It is about taking the initiative. As I was saying when I was talking about career and business, moving slightly outside your comfort zone, being a bit rash, crossing the great water, giving out some message, whether it's a text message, email, saying something to someone, sending a letter, just seeing what happens. And you push it out and you wait. Hence, after from increase, you move to contemplation. So then you're seeing, where is this relationship going to go? You've done your bit. You've done your best to improve this relationship, or indeed you've done your best to start this relationship. You've done your best to show your interest. Then, having done your bit, you wait. You wait, and I think in this context, you wait to see how the other person responds. And then, maybe next month, because I'm only asking about this week, maybe next month, a week, next week, you can see what the situation looks like, and then perhaps you can really take some more substantial initiative. But we're running ahead of ourselves there. And that's it with my I Ching. And so this week it's dominated by the full moon, which is the apulse eclipse right at the beginning of the week. And I just don't think that anything else is just matches the full moon for its strength. Of course, you have to be a bit careful. Tuesday through Thursday, moon is in the Veer combustor. Things can happen, but we weren't expecting. And of course, yes, I looked at Catherine's chart, and I suppose I have to finish by saying, I wish her well, and I hope she's able to make a speedy and complete recovery. So thank you very much for listening to this video. If you enjoyed this video, I would be grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, I would of course be grateful if you were to subscribe and of course like it. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.